Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Yes, that's it. Okay, back to the cars. In this episode we will go through what all the magazines and other media has said about the car during the autumn and early winter of 2018-2019, and it's quite extraordinary. I have, during my years as a car tester, never experienced a reception as strong as this one. Come on. Let's start with perhaps the world's most important car magazine, which is the German Auto, Motor und Sport. This is clearly an automotive test powerhouse. A new generation of reporters took over a couple of years ago, and the magazine has gained some well-needed playfulness without losing the seriousness when it is important. They can perhaps sometimes be accused of sitting slightly too close to other Stuttgart establishments such as Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, or maybe also the German car industry in general, and that can make them sometimes a little soft on the industry when it comes to Dieselgate, etc. But they are still the leading tester and describer of what is happening in technology as well as the industry as a whole. So they know their stuff, that's clear. And in their number 16 in 2018, they did what they call an Einzeltest, which means it's a single test, it's no adversary. And a guy called Jens Dralle did this test. He called it Zarte Arbeit, and I guess that's sort of soft work or something. I'm not really sure what it means, although I speak German. He praises the driving fun, the enormous agility, handling, sound, the relatively soft suspension, that it is so lively, but the rear is loose, which I also like very much, of course. He also likes the DSG gearbox, which is not a common thing from Renault, which has released quite a few shifted DSG gearboxes throughout the days. The test highlights, of course, well, the car went from 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds and achieved 250 kilometers an hour in top speed, which is, of course, electronically limited. Braking from 100 in 34.8 meters and weighed in at 1109 kilos with a full tank. Really light, as you know. And among the pluses there was a good sitting room for him, and also the bigger framed reporters in the team, the pliant suspension, the strong engine, the superb handling, the good brakes, the low consumption. What he didn't like so much is, of course, that the luggage space is limited, of course. And he also identified some lift-off oversteer, which required some getting used to. Interesting. He also raised some questions about the torsional stiffness of the body, which interested me. I've never heard anyone else saying something about that, but well, let's keep that in mind. Anyway, in the next number, Automotorsport number 17, they did a full doppeltest or double test against Porsche 718 Cayman, which is of course the natural rival of this car. I think the two tests were probably done at the same time. Once they had a test car, they produced material for two magazine issues. What they say here is that the 718 is Ergebnis statt Erlebnis orientiert, which means that the Porsche focuses on measurable results instead of driving experiences. The Porsche weighs 1442 and the Alpine weighs 1109. 330 kilos difference. Wow, that's an enormous difference. Apart from that, the Porsche seem to win almost all disciplines when it comes to measurements, although by very small margins. But you see the Porsche does 0 to 100 in 4.8, where the Alpine does 4.9. The Porsche brakes in 34 meters, the Alpine in 34.8. The Porsche achieves 275 kilometers an hour and the Alpine 250. A lot of this is of course explained that both front and rear the Porsche have 3 millimeters or more rubber. When it comes to consumption, of course, maybe not a total priority in this segment, but still the Alpine achieved 7.8 in the test and the Porsche 9.6. And also when it comes to being able to stand traveling in the car, at 100 kilometers an hour, the Alpine had 71 decibels in the cockpit, whereas the Cayman had 75. That's quite a big difference. Noisy Cayman. Nobody says a word about sensitivity to lift-off oversteer or torsional rigidity in this test, but throughout the text it's very easy to feel that they like the Alpine much more. And overall, the Alpine wins by a slim margin, helps by its focus on pure fun and being just a better financial deal, really. Okay, let's move on to another German car magazine powerhouse, which is called Sportauto, perhaps best known for testing sports cars and setting Nürburgring Nordschleife times in their so-called super test. Many years, driving god Horst von Saurma was chief test driver as well as editor-in-chief, but a new generation has now taken over. But the new guys also seem to know their driving when you see the times they achieve on the good old Nürburgring Nordschleife. Jesus Christ, these guys are not afraid, that's clear. Anyway, in their number 9 2018, they begin their test of the Alpine. We are in love, head over heels in this girl, the Alpine. Fantastic. They say that in contrast to many other sports cars, this one can also brighten up your everyday, which is important, of course. And they also generally accuses the Renault Group for sometimes making cars for people that simply do not exist. They must mean like the Avantim and Belsatis and all this really strange stuff that Renault has launched in the past. But sometimes they seem to do everything right, just in like in this case. Anyway, on the scales it says 11-14 kilos, so the same level, and the car achieves 1.14 on the small Hockenheim track. It's like an Alpha 4C, but 1.5 seconds slower than the Cayman. Very much rubber related, I would think. It achieves 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. They praise the choice of slim rubber and soft suspension, which makes the car much more fun and lively, even at close to legal speeds. It has very few support systems, total focus on driver experience. They also praise the low weight, of course, and the double wishbone suspension all round, which is not found in so many cars. In the end, they ask themselves, can you find anything better and more fun? ? That is what we ask ourselves. If you go by points, yes, but otherwise, hardly. Wow, that's also very good. Very strong result by the Alpine. But the Sportauto love affair with the A110 seems to go on. In December 2018, it participates in the best handling car competition, or test rather, in the Anaudurin track in, I think it's in Alsace, France. And here it competes against the Ferrari 488 Pista, the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, Mercedes AMG GT, the giant Lamborghini Urus, BMW M2, etc. And although the A110 is one of the slowest cars here, it wins pretty easily. And what they say is that Alpine takes a lightweight concept much further than anyone else, including the GT3 RS. They see it as a Gesamtkunstwerk, like a total piece of art. Light-footed, crazy in a good way, very lively, pretty much like driving on gravel. And when they in the end choose which car they take home, I mean, remember, these are cars worth on the upside of 200,000 euros each. Both of them still choose the Alpine, which I think is pretty cool. What I also found very much enjoyably German is how depressed they all look when they discuss how much they love the Alpine and also other cars. Maybe these guys just got wind of the 18-month Alpine A110 waiting list, or who knows, I don't know. Okay, moving on to the United Kingdom. On the 16th of May issue of Autocar, there's a single test of the Alpine A110. And they are of course fascinated by the rebirth of the Israeli icon, which is clearly aiming for the Porsche Cayman. On the plus side, they see the fantastic handling, lots of character, that it loses little to real supercars in terms of real-world pace. They also love the design. What they don't love so much is that some of the plastics are a bit low rent, and that the steering feel is not one of the best. That's interesting. Let's keep that in mind too. Anyway, in the end, it receives, I mean, the A110 receives a full 5 stars without any question. And the Alpine comes back in the 1st of August issue for Autocar, which states the 50 best cars you can buy in the UK in 2018. And it starts there with the BMW 530. Well, it starts much further back, but on the top 5 list you have number 5, the BMW 530D Touring, which I like. Number 4, the Golf R, which I own myself. That's a good, I mean, obviously these are tasteful people. Number 3, it's an off-road crazy creation called the Ariel Nomad. On the 2nd place is a Fiesta ST. I have to test drive a Fiesta ST, of course. It seems to be a really good little super mini hot hatch. And big drum roll here, which is the best of the 50 best cars you can buy in the UK in the 2018. It's the Alpine A110. Number 1 again. Fantastic. Moving on then to a video that they shoot with the Alpine A110, also Autocar, against the BMW M2 competition. They go through in the beginning here that a couple of years ago the way to find out which was the best coupe available on the market was just to sort of test the Porsche Cayman, and then, well, the Cayman always came out on top. Not so anymore. These two contenders now also the A110 and the M2 represent the best the market can offer. And what they say about the Alpine is that it's so sweet, so satisfying, and so much fun. They end up liking both very much, but of course the Alpine wins in both presenters' view. Moving on to another video done by Parkers, which put the A110 against the Cayman GTS. I mean, obviously Cayman GTS is a more highly spec'd car. Sorry. Anyway, these two gentlemen seem to have secured 2 press cars with which they race around Wales or the Lake District or whatever they are. It looks nice anyway. The conclusion is that one chooses the Alpine while respecting the Cayman for its abilities. I think he nails it pretty much in the final statement. He says, "I just have more fun in the Alpine." The other one chooses the Cayman, manual gearbox, better built being the major reasons for him. Also more money, of course, but hey, nobody's perfect. Then we go on to one of my favorite magazines called Evo, and they run this Car of the Year annual event, which in this case included from the bottom the Renault Megane RS, the Volkswagen Up GTI, the Ferrari 488 Pista, number 5 BMW M2, number 4 Ford Fiesta ST, number 3 Porsche 911 GT2, number 2 Alpine A110. just losing the victory to the McLaren 600 LT, which is a car that costs about 3 or 4 times as much. Still, they praise the Alpine, and they call the car a natural extension of your limbs, which I think is pretty interesting. But they also point out a couple of issues where it could be even better than it is. They ask whether it would be better with a limited slip differential. It seems to drift really well anyway. I don't know whether an LSD is really needed. Manual gearbox, well, that would be of course interesting. We will see what happens in the Alpine lineup in the future. Like mentioned in the last program, Top Gear placed it number 1 in their performance car of the test, I think it's called. And here you see the list, and of course you can note there that we have the little Alpine there in the very top, which is very good. And coming then to this gentleman, and let him put it himself.
I'd have to say that the best car I drove last year was the Alpine, because I then went and bought one, and I didn't buy any of the other ones I drove. Oh, I'm enjoying the Alpine very much mainly because it's small. This is something that people have lost sight of with supercars. I mean, it isn't a supercar, it's only a sports car, but it feels like a supercar, and because it's small, you get a bigger road. As I've said before, it's like Richard Hammond effectively has a bigger house than the rest of us because he's smaller.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien.